Did you know that even living legends aren't immune to tragedy? At 80 years old, Rod Stewart, the raspy-voiced rock superstar whose music has been the soundtrack to generations, is facing the toughest chapter of his life. Beloved for hits like Maggie May, Sailing, and Do You Think I'm Sexy, Stewart built a career that spanned 6 decades, selling over 120 million records and charming fans with his magnetic presence. But behind the fame and fortune lies a story of heartache, illness, and unimaginable loss. Rod Stewart has lived larger than life, but the tragedies he has endured, from heartbreaking family struggles to devastating health scares, reveal the vulnerability of even the strongest icons. As he enters his 9th decade, Stewart has finally opened up about his battles, his regrets, and the haunting truths that shaped his journey. And the reality is far more heartbreaking than most fans ever suspected. Born in London in 1945, Rod Stewart grew up in a working-class Scottish family with dreams bigger than his humble beginnings. Football was his first love, but music soon took over, and by the 1960s he was performing in small clubs, busking on the streets, and slowly carving out his place in the world. His unique raspy voice, often compared to sandpaper and silk, became his trademark. After stints with the Jeff Beck Group and Faces, Stewart launched his solo career, breaking into superstardom in the 1970s. Songs like Maggie May not only topped the charts but also defined an era. His style, flamboyant, cheeky, and irresistibly charming, made him a household name. By the 80s, he was among the biggest names in rock, filling stadiums worldwide. But with fame came turbulence, and behind the glamorous image, cracks began to form in his personal life. Rod Stewart's love life was as famous as his music. Known as a ladies' man, he had high-profile relationships and marriages that kept tabloids busy for decades. From Britt Ekland to Rachel Hunter and Penny Lancaster, Stewart's romances often played out in the spotlight. Yet, for all his bravado, Stewart admitted that heartbreak hit him harder than any critic ever could. His marriage to model Rachel Hunter was particularly devastating. Despite their 24-year age gap, Stewart fell deeply in love, describing her as his soulmate. But when the marriage crumbled in 1999, he confessed it nearly destroyed him emotionally. The divorce left scars that, even years later, he struggled to heal from. Stewart would later reflect that, despite his tough exterior, he was a man who longed for stability but often sabotaged it himself. Stewart is a father of 8 children with 5 different women, but his journey as a parent has been bittersweet. While he openly admits to not always being present during his children's younger years due to touring and fame, he has tried to make amends in his later life. But tragedy struck in ways that tested his strength as a father. In 1986, Stewart's son Sean was at the center of public scandals involving arrests and substance abuse issues. Decades later, his youngest children with Penny Lancaster faced the pain of seeing their father's health deteriorate. But perhaps the deepest wound was Stewart's admission of guilt over putting fame before family, leaving him with regrets he carries into his 80s. "I made mistakes," he once confessed. "And those mistakes haunt me more than anything else." For years, Rod Stewart seemed invincible, full of energy on stage, forever the cheeky rock star. But in 2000, tragedy struck when he was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. Though the tumor was removed, the surgery left him unable to sing for months. Doctors feared he might lose his voice forever. For a man whose entire identity was built on his vocal gift, it was almost too much to bear. Miraculously, Stewart recovered, retraining his voice through relentless practice. But the battle left him shaken, forcing him to confront his mortality. He admitted later that the experience humbled him, making him realize that even icons are fragile. The world celebrated his recovery, but privately, Stewart began to feel the weight of time pressing down on him in ways he never had before. In 2019, Stewart revealed another devastating truth. He had secretly been battling prostate cancer for 3 years. He chose to keep it private until he was given the all-clear, but the diagnosis left fans stunned. Once again, Stewart had faced death head-on and barely escaped. Although he survived, the ordeal reminded him and his fans that time was no longer on his side. Prostate cancer, often called the silent killer, left Stewart shaken but determined to use his platform to raise awareness. He became an advocate for men's health, urging others not to ignore regular checkups. But the scars of that battle, both physical and emotional, continue to weigh heavily on him today. Rod Stewart's life has also been marked by profound loss. In 2023, he lost both of his brothers, Bob and Don, within months of each other. The grief was overwhelming for the singer, who described them as his anchors. Losing siblings so close together devastated him, leaving him with a void that music could not fill. He often spoke of how family always grounded him, and to lose two of his closest relatives while facing his own health challenges left him in despair. Fans saw a different side of Rod, not the cheeky rocker or the suave ladies' man, but a grieving brother struggling to keep going. This tragedy marked one of the darkest chapters of his life. Stewart's rise to superstardom came with sacrifices few could see from the outside. Behind the glitz of private jets, platinum records, and sold-out arenas was a man who often felt the crushing weight of isolation. He has openly admitted that fame, while exhilarating and intoxicating in the moment, left him with a void that success could never quite fill. The endless grind of touring, the fleeting nature of relationships on the road, and the constant pressure to live up to the legend of Rod Stewart slowly wore him down. The stage lights made him shine for millions, but when they went dark, Stewart was often left alone with his thoughts, carrying the heavy toll of a life built around performance. By the time he reached his 70s, Stewart's perspective had shifted dramatically. He no longer craved the roar of the crowd with the same urgency as he once did, instead longing for something more personal, more grounded. Quiet dinners with family, mornings without flights or rehearsals, and time spent simply being present became more valuable than all the adrenaline a stadium could offer. But that transition from living at full throttle to slowing down proved difficult. The silence that follows a lifetime of applause can be deafening, and for Stewart, it carried a deep sadness, a haunting reminder that no spotlight, no matter how bright, can burn forever. In his later years, the cracks behind the rock star persona became clearer. Stewart revealed his battles with depression and anxiety, struggles that contradicted his image as the charming, carefree joker who lit up interviews and stages. Privately, he wrestled with feelings of regret, loneliness, and a vulnerability that came with loss. Friends close to him have said that the deaths of family members and old companions, combined with his own health challenges, struck him harder than fans could ever imagine. The man who once seemed invincible on stage was, in reality, deeply human, carrying scars that no fame or fortune could erase. Though he continues to step onto the stage on occasion, Stewart has admitted the magic isn't the same. The music that once healed him, that once served as his lifeline, no longer provides the same comfort. At 80, the tragedy isn't defined only by illness or the passing of time, but by the stark confrontation with mortality itself. His life of excess has given him extraordinary memories, moments others can only dream of, yet those memories are double-edged, both a source of comfort and a painful reminder of all that's been lost along the way. With age, Stewart has shed much of the bravado that defined his younger self. Instead, he speaks with candor about his regrets and the mistakes that cost him dearly. He admits that his greatest sorrow is not the failed relationships, the health scares, or even the heartbreaks. It's the moments missed with his children, the family milestones sacrificed in the relentless pursuit of another hit record or another tour. That honesty, rare among stars of his magnitude, reveals a man reckoning with the personal cost of fame. Now, at 80, Stewart is focused on finding peace with his past. He spends his days more quietly, treasuring time with his wife Penny and his children, trying to reclaim what was once lost to the whirlwind of his career. But even as he savors these precious moments, he has confessed the unavoidable truth: time is slipping away. "You don't get to be 80 without thinking about the end," he admitted recently, his voice carrying the weight of acceptance. That rare vulnerability makes his story not only poignant but profoundly heartbreaking, a reminder that even legends must eventually face the final curtain. Rod Stewart's tragedy lies not only in the illnesses, heartbreaks, and losses he has endured, but in the cruel passage of time. The man who once ruled the stage with boundless energy is now frailer, reflective, and aware that his spotlight is dimming. Fans who grew up with him now see their idol as human, vulnerable, and mortal. Yet, Stewart's legacy is undeniable. He remains one of the greatest entertainers of all time, his voice etched into history. But the tragedy of Rod Stewart is that, despite everything he has achieved, the losses, regrets, and pains still linger in his heart. And as fans, we can only celebrate his triumphs while mourning the heartbreaking reality that even legends cannot outrun him.